I got my shit. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to another special episode of Herschel Talkers. And Herschel Talkers with the college football hour from north to south. We got Big Sean and Angry Scott will be joining us very soon. How are we doing today, Sean?
Fantastic. How you doing, bud?
Hey, first off, we want to thank our partnership again. Talking Dogs, they allow us to post on their content. Anything Georgia. If you want the coffee shop that talks about Georgia football, they got Commit to the G, really good recruiting resources. Film Room Study, where you can find us. Also, please hit that like button and subscribe for all those notifications. Help us build the channel. We'll go right into it. Sean, big win, 41-17 over Tennessee. Hostile environment. Everybody's a little worried about this high octane offense. They started fast, coming out, scoring right away on the first drive. But Georgia ended up taking care of business, 41-17, and we covered. I think it was like a 19-point spread. Defense took over. To me, this was the coming out party of James Cook, even though Sean earlier in the year said James Cook was our best overall back. But 100 yards, 3 touchdowns, looking great. Bennett did what he did. He was able to extend plays with his legs. Didn't see any JT Daniels. A.D. Mitchell led the team in receiving. To me, he reminds me of like a Riley Ridley, Chris Conley, but sure hands. But what was your thoughts on the game?
Obviously you're happy with the win, right? But I feel like, in all honesty, this was the most poorly managed game probably in Kirby Smart's era to me for a couple of reasons. First of all, once again, it's another week, another blowout, and we don't see any semblance of a backup quarterback. And I'm not trying to make this about whether or not Stetson Bennett's good enough to do anything. But what I'm trying to make it about is if there is an injury to whoever QB1 is in a game, you really don't know. Or you haven't, given your team you haven't put your team in the best spot because the backup quarterback, once again, hasn't gotten meaningful reps. That's a problem. It's been a problem throughout his tenure. I'm really not surprised at this point, but it was just horrible. The other thing that was just completely unacceptable to me is that, I feel like Kirby Smart got in a bit of a pissing contest because he has this, idea in his head. His whole thing is he wants to prove that defense can still win championships. I get it. He's a defensive guy. He was an all SEC safety. Came up under Saban, the Bill Belichick tree. 100% get it, right? But at the same time, keeping guys like Nolan Smith, especially when you've already got issues at outside linebacker and you've lost Adam Anderson to whatever his issue is, and you've got him in there at the end of the game. He's got some type of injury to his elbow or shoulder. Who knows? Because we never get to treat bad injuries from Kirby anyway. And, right now we're looking at maybe he's going to play in the SEC title game, which is kind of a huge, it's a dynamic changer because now you've got you go from having 2 elite pass rushers 2 weeks ago to now having none? Yeah. It's just completely unacceptable. And then, you've got Wyatt out there, who's, I guess, got a sprained knee or whatever else. I mean, it's just
bad timing.
And I'll say this too. Like, I know I unapologetically will hammer Kirby when I think he's not doing things right. But part of that is because he's got the potential to be top 1 or 2 coach in the nation, but he's just got to change a few things. He's got to stop going from being just this defensive-minded coach and become more what Saban and Belichick evolved into, which is just a head coach that's looking for the easiest way to win games and win national titles, just through offense. Pretty much his whole philosophy is the equivalent of, moving, the 12th floor of an apartment, right? 12th floor apartment building. And you're taking the stairs when you've got an elevator available to you. It's literally what he does right now. And so it's just crazy to me. I don't get it. I feel like football is definitely one of those games where it can be so complex and complicated that, you can talk yourself out of any good idea. And I feel like that's maybe what's happening here.
Yeah.
So, I mean, but, that's kind of what I've got to say. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I liked it that from a mentality, they did take a kind of took a punch to the face, as they say, got punched in the mouth on that first drive. I think we all knew if you could just weather the storm. So that was a positive. And then they made adjustments. And I thought this was in Adam Anderson's absence that Channing Kendall really came in. I mean, Sean, I think it kind of crazy that he is that our depth's that great. He's the backup linebacker. He had 3 sacks. I feel like it's kind of like a spy, and you can kind of take up for that whole Adam Anderson thing. I was hoping to see a little bit of JT Daniels when we were out, but it is what it is. But I think this, if you're on Team Bennett or Team Daniels, I think this solidifies that he is the QB going forward. I will say the conspiracy theory on me, though, hearing that whole thing during the end of the game with Gary Danielson and Brad Nessler about this coaching guru coming and working on his mechanics. That was interesting, but I think going forward,
interesting how, like, what does that, make you suspicious of in your mind?
Just the way Gary Danielson said it. This is whole from Dog Nation Daily podcast. You can check it out. He said that Gary Danielson said, I visited with this Jordan Palmer, and he was about to say JT Daniels was finally ready, and he's about to go into it, but they got interrupted by a play. So I don't know if that's him he was saying something that he thought that he's finally ready. But the good thing is, I mean, you do have a backup quarterback in JT Daniels. Maybe we'll get to see him in Charleston Southern and Georgia Tech to get him ready. And in case we do maybe need him again, Bama in the SEC championship and further against one of these in a shootout, that we need a backup quarterback. But it is what it is. But and then back to the injuries, I was getting pissed too at the end. I was like, hey, get them out, get them all out. You're up 41-17. If they score, they score. We don't need any more of these injuries with Wyatt going down, Dolan and Nolan Smith. And then the whole thing about the stomach bug thing was weird. I think they're saying now that they moved some of them with flu-like symptoms on a separate plane. That was kind of crazy, but it was a good win. Hostile environment. For Tennessee, I think they might, if they get some defense, they might be a team to get reckoned with going forward. But yeah, it was a good win.
Well, speaking of that, honestly, like if I'm Gunnar Stockton or Brock Vandagriff,
I know this.
Why? I mean, honestly, why are you not looking at Tennessee? You're going to throw the ball. Like, what are you going to do at Georgia? Hand the ball off for 2.5 years and then, just wait Stetson Bennett out?
Yeah, great. We'll give him one more year.
I mean, it's just. I mean, why would you come? Why would you stay? Why would you come? I mean, it's just like. I don't know. I mean, Sean, maybe they deserve each other.
Yeah. Hey, there we go. Angry Scott, how are we doing today?
Oh, I'm doing fantastic. Hey, Sean, I think it's official. Even though I'm Angry Scott, we're gonna go ahead and change your name to Angry Sean. Okay.
I mean, I'm being completely real and honest. Like,
are you being realistic, Sean? Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Yeah. 100% realistic.
I'm gonna get real with you right now. Okay, I'm gonna get real with you. I understand all your concerns offensively. But I will say this. As an Ohio State guy, I have more concerns. Because still Georgia right now is by far the best team in America. Everyone else has holes. I know you've got a question regarding offense and everything, but what scares me the most as an Ohio State fan, an Ohio State expert, of course, that's why you have me on the show, is your D-line. I'm not worried about your secondary. I think we could score some points, but I've seen from Ohio State, we'll get into that later, that they've had trouble moving the ball. So if we're having trouble moving the ball against Penn State, and we're having trouble moving the ball against some of these other teams in the Big Ten, and some of those D-lines are decent. They're not Georgia good, so that concerns me. And Alabama is the most vulnerable they've been in years. Yeah. And then who else in there really concerns me?
By the way, who's been preaching this for a while now? This guy.
Big Sean did say that, yeah. But can we get over the Bama hump? Got to get the win.
Here's what it is, and I'll say this right now, and we'll get into this when we talk about Ohio State, but the other thing I'll say is right now, I think Ohio State, I think we could play with Bama. I think we could play with Cincinnati or any other, we definitely play with Oregon if they get in, whoever may get in. My biggest concern is Georgia. So I understand you're maybe not meeting that level of expectation. You still got to get over the Bama hump, but you're still definitely the number one team in America. It's not even close. right now. But yes, you do have room for improvement. Speaking of which, if you look at the score from last week, do you remember what I predicted? 42-20. That's pretty damn close, isn't it, boys?
Hey, I said 38-17. I got 17 right.
Okay. Now, Sean, I hear all this wrestling about. Are you wrapping presents right now, or what's going on?
I actually am walking the dogs.
It's a doggy dog world.
Well, I didn't know if you were okay.
In other words, I had to let the dogs out.
Yeah, let the dogs out.
I thought that you were wrapping your boy Kirby Smart a present after all this talk, but I don't know first if you had to go and pick it up from the dog out there.
It is.
Please, you're just gonna drop it off.
The number of times I've thought of that.
You're gonna drop it off on the front porch and say, "Please light on fire."
I mean, we could, and I was telling this to Trey too. I mean, he really has potential to be top 2-3 coach. I mean, nationally, but what he's got to do is get out of this. I mean, his whole hill that he's dying on right now is he wants defense to win championships again. I feel like he's got to kind of move past that and do what Belichick and Saban, did, and just figure out the easiest way to win. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, the problem with that, the year is 2021. That's the problem. And to your point, well, what happens if somebody does? And I'm not saying it will happen, but if somebody does go and figure out something to score enough points on Georgia, ultimately your talent won out over Tennessee. And,
well,
that
I'll
was
tell you what, I think people did. I think Tennessee showed the exact playbook. You just hurry up. You go hurry. Like that gave them problems, for most of the first quarter, I feel like. Now, if you can imagine if you guys did that, or, Alabama, as soon as they, if they're able to, get their offense going.
The thing is, if the playoff was next week, I unequivocally I'd unequivocally say Georgia, obviously is the favorite, but I would feel best about them winning it. What you don't know is in these last several weeks, and then when somebody prepares for one team for 3 weeks, when they make the playoffs, are they going to come up with a game plan? Because Ohio State, I had my concerns last year. I said, oh boy, we might get our ass kicked by Clemson. And they came up with a great game plan and took it to them. So that would be my biggest concern, that and getting over the hump there, the Bama hump. Or
see, I'm not even worried about Bama. Like, anybody who's worried about Bama, it's probably the same people that believe in, do you ever see that it's a classic, like, Ebon's video of, like, the leprechaun in the tree in Alabama?
Yeah.
Where, like, these people, like, it's a news story. Yeah, when they swear they saw a leprechaun in a tree. It's that same mentality. It's the most ridiculous thing. You just think that Alabama has the infinity gauntlet. It can just change reality. I mean,
yeah, Sean, the only person that has that power is me. And so if you get out of line, I won't pass this along.
Hey, best thing I heard today, Sean, real quick on that is Bama still the boogeyman for you Georgia fans? Nate Dogg asked me that today, and I thought it was great. And I said, yeah.
No, they're not.
3 national titles.
Trey, go ahead and mark that down. That's anywhere from a 7 to a 14-point win.
All right.
Here's what I'm going to say, though, as well. Here's my thing. It might have to be, even though you want to go and exercise those demons on your way to a national championship. Ohio State did that against Alabama in 2014. And then we're like, oh, wait a second. It was kind of like we compared it as Ohio State fans when the USA beat Russia in the 1988, hockey game. And then I was like, wait a second. They had to play the U.S. Olympic team. It's like, well, that wasn't the gold medal game. They had to play, was it Finland or somebody after that? Or we had to play Oregon after that. Well, with us, with this, you're still going to have to go and get through Bama. But the thing is, you might have to play them again. I think if they have 2 losses, if it's a bad loss, they're out. But the thing you have to wait for is you don't know who else is going to get in when everything shakes out. And we'll get into the college football talk later, So the other thing that you might want to do, even though I think you'd like to exercise those demons, because I think you will win this year. But even better is if you didn't have to play them, somebody beat them on the way, and you play Texas A&M in the SEC championship.
I think that's a monkey. Oh, that's ruined now because Texas A&M's got 3 losses. I think it's done.
Yeah, Ole Miss beat them.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, anyway, we'll jump into that real quick. So Charleston Southern, School of the Blind, Sisters of the Poor. Don't know much about them. 4-5, rolling into Athens 12:00 game. On the most important thing is for all you people, SEC Plus. Might want to check your programming or ESPN Plus. Mama T will be really mad if she can't watch the game. really small team. What I like to see this week is, first off, no injuries. I wouldn't play any of those guys. Sit them. You don't need them. And get Sean. I don't know what that face. I don't know what that
Hey,
face.
Sean.
Hey, here we go. Look at that. And then
Sean, you're frightening the viewers.
I know. And then I would like to see, hopefully, JT Daniels get some work to blow the dust off. Would be great. So that's what I'm looking for this weekend. See, this game doesn't even have a spread currently. If this tells you anything, I'm gonna go ahead and say I like Georgia 56-7 and a backyard touchdown. So that's what I'm looking forward to. Sean, what would you like to see this week?
Hey, Sean, can I tell you what I'd like to see?
Yeah, you certainly.
I like Sean to fucking get it together.
Yeah. Sean, what would you like to see this
We have
week, man?
loyal viewers right now. Sean, you're frightening them with your unprofessionalism. That's up to Trey to be unprofessional.
John, what would you like to see this weekend, real quick? Charleston Southern, the Buccaneers.
Score more points than the other team, I guess. I don't know. I mean, you don't want to see injuries, right?
JT Daniels.
I mean, yeah, that too.
Yep.
I mean, we've pretty much been over. Like, the script's the same thing every week, right? No injuries, and let's see JT Daniels or, like, some meaningful reps go to a backup.
Yeah, I agree. Might get Carson Beck handing the ball off and a lot of Dejon Edwards. It'd be good to get Playlock in there too. All right, rolling over to it.
Would you want my prediction on the game, Trey, or do you just not care what I think?
Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, honestly, who cares what any of us think? I'm playing Charleston Southern.
I don't know much about them, but I think it's probably 40-50 point spread. But go ahead, Scott. You can give a prediction.
I don't know what it is, but I don't know what the final score is, but I will say Georgia wins by 59. Mark it down.
59-7. All right.
No. I didn't say. I said they win by 59. Trey.
All right. I like that.
Well, you want to know what I want to see? I want to see us go for it on fourth down every drive.
Yeah.
Okay, there, Lane Train.
All right, jumping over to it, to the north to the south, the Big Ten portion. We've got Ohio State with a big beat down. I was impressed. 59 on a pretty good Purdue Spoilermakers. I think the spread was 20. Everybody and their mom was on this spread, Scott, for all those degenerate gamblers out there. I did not bet. I know you were going to ask that. But a huge win. CJ Stroud, 5 touchdowns, 361. Did give up 390 yards passing. I didn't watch this game because I was actually watching the Georgia-Tennessee game. So what was your thoughts on it? Give us a breakdown.
Well, I will say this. So our last loss, Ohio State's last loss in the Big Ten was 2018 to Purdue, and they blew the doors off. And so Purdue is one of those teams that whether they're good or bad, they always play us tough. But when we do beat them like we should, we usually start taking it to them early. And that's what we did in this game. We took it to them. We kept on taking it to them, and they didn't have an answer. Now, unfortunately, if I can get back to my angry Scott portion of the show, I also have concerns defensively because they had a really good wide receiver. I can't think his name was a Bell, or forget what his name was, but he took advantage of our secondary that day. Now he's going to be in the NFL next year, but still, David Bell there. It's still concerning that once again. I mean, a good, decent team. What were they ranked? Purdue.
19.
Yeah, they're 19th ranked Purdue.
Coming
but
off
still,
it's
Michigan
Michigan State. We'll get in that.
Yeah, but still, we jumped on like we should have, and then we let it get a little bit closer than what it should. But it was really, the contest was really never in jeopardy. So, I mean, ultimately, we took care of business. Offensively, we came out, and I'm glad we came out and started to show who we are. So we're starting to gel at the right time. Defensively, I still have my concerns. They put up 31, and just like Sean's concerns is, I always say, okay, hey, that's a good score, but we still gave up way too many points. I mean, we won by 28. However, we gave up too many scores. So what's it going to be like against? Because our only chance of beating a team like Georgia is to outscore them. My biggest concerns are on the defense. So that's what we're going to see going forward. Now, what do I think? I think we're going to win the next 2 games, and I think we're going to win the Big Ten championship. That's what I think is going to happen. I think if we lose the game, I think we're more likely to lose this next week than what we are to lose the following week, because we play Michigan State this next week and then Michigan the following. I don't see us losing the Big Ten championship. Anything could happen, but I don't see that happening. But it's you never know. It's just time of year. We are going to have college game day there, so it's going to be a big environment. So I'm excited
Scott,
for that. But it is.
If you don't mind me interjecting, who does it look like you guys are going to probably play in the Big Ten title game at this point?
I mean, that's still being worked out right now. Let me look at the standings right now, Trey. If you want to bring up the standings in the Big Ten West.
That's right. I believe it's it is Wisconsin, but
I mean, Wisconsin's on the top right now, but I think did Wisconsin, Iowa? I think they might have played this last week. Let's see. I think it's still did they play this last week? Yes, and they won big. So yeah, it probably will be Wisconsin, which we've kind of had their number in the Big Ten championship. If they beat us, it's usually during the regular season. Now, once again, man, anything can happen because to that point, even though CJ Stroud is starting to come together, I still have my questions. He's not Justin Fields. I don't know if he has ice water in his veins. He's certainly better than what he was earlier this year. I just don't know if he's ready to take those next steps in the big games.
And you guys,
the big games, I'm not necessarily talking about the Michigan States, the Michigans, the Big Ten championship. Not that those aren't big. My biggest concerns are coming to a playoff.
Man, you guys are top heavy in the East, man. You got ranked 4, 7, and 6. That's crazy, and it's top heavy. I will say this: I don't know much about them, but somebody was pointing out Wisconsin has played really well down the back. Sure, they got their defense together against some decent teams. You probably know better than me, Scott.
Yeah, I mean, I think they started out. God, didn't they lost like some pretty early games? I think they lost to Penn State. They beat Eastern Michigan. They got their asses beaten by Notre Dame. And then they got their asses beaten by Michigan. And now, so they were like at one point in time 1-3, and then they haven't lost since. Of course, those wins are against Illinois, Army. Now they did beat Purdue. They took it to Purdue, 30-13. What's that now?
I said Iowa was a good win too. I mean, 27.
Yeah, Iowa was a good win. I mean, then Rutgers and Northwestern. So they'll have another win coming up again. So we'll get another loss for Nebraska coming up, and then Minnesota. So it probably will be Wisconsin. Now we've had their number. Now anything can happen, but I think if Ohio State's going to lose in the next 3 weeks, I think it is most likely that would happen this week. That being said, I want us to come out like we did against Purdue, handle business, get to Michigan, handle business there, and of course, win the Big Ten championship and get into a playoff. But my biggest concerns are kind of like Sean, because I know, especially defensively, we have not played, like, we still have holes defensively. My concern is not necessarily that your boy Stetson is going to go and light the world on fire, but we're not as good as we were in 2019. And that's mostly a quarterback. I just don't know if he's ready for the next stage, but I hope that he proves me wrong.
Well, I mean, it's not just the quarterback. I mean, that defense was great in 2019. I mean, Chase Young.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'd argue honestly that I think we had a better team in 2019 than 2020. But that goes, the better team doesn't always win. Does that mean that we go on, if we would have beat Clemson, does mean we go on and beat LSU? Not necessarily. No, I mean, that LSU had a great team then, so I would love to see it. But they probably still would have went on and won. So still one of those games you would have liked to see. Now we won. We gave Clemson a beat down last year, which was great. But then we come up against Bama. Which my concern is this year that Georgia is that team right now, like Bama was last year.
Right. And looking ahead, Scott, so are you more nervous about Michigan State this week or Michigan, just because you have their number, if you had to pick?
Oh, I'm definitely, if you've been listening to anything I've been saying, which obviously you haven't, then
Damn.
I mean, you weren't even walking the dog, for Christ's sake. Anyways, but as I said like about 3 or 4 times now, I'm much more concerned about this upcoming week than what I am about Michigan and the Big Ten title. Not that, I mean, they're all important, man. And you got young players. You don't have, especially the quarterback position. And, and we're still running the ball a little bit, but, and Travion Henderson is coming on. But when we come against a decent D line, I mean, here's the thing, our offensive line, we can be studs, but I don't think they've played to their ability at times. Yeah. And that is, we have not run as well as what we have earlier in the years because Travion Henderson, him being a freshman, has, is it the wear and tear of the season. And then he's also getting a lot of those carries because Mayan Williamson, he's taken over some of those, but Master Teague has been out. So, it's really also just you have that other guy just kind of, they give the other guy a spell, Travion, because he's definitely our number one at this point in time.
Right. And looking at the matchup, number 7, Michigan State, you got Kenneth Walker. There's a stud, look, over 1,400 yards. Point spread is 19. How's your run defense been recently? Because run heavy.
I hate to say this, honestly. I think he might go for over 200, man.
Really?
I think Kenneth Walker III might go on a way to winning a Heisman and go for over 200. Now, I hope we can still win a game. I think we still will win the game, but I was more concerned that how are we going to come in playing against a good Purdue team. Well, of course, Michigan State's already lost to Purdue as well. So, but that's not okay. Well, hey, they lost to Purdue. We beat Purdue. That doesn't mean that equals a victory for us. So,
and Scott, if I could ask one thing, what would need? I mean, you sound pretty confident about making it to the Big Ten title game. Is there really any path for Michigan or Michigan State at this point to get in?
Yeah, the path for all of us is to win out. The path for all of us to win out. So if you look at the playoff right now, so Ohio State's 4th, Michigan State is 7th, and Michigan 6th. My understanding is they all win out. Whoever wins that, Ohio State, Michigan State, or Michigan will go and then make it. I don't know all the other tiebreaker scenarios and everything. We win out, we're in. But if Michigan wins out, they should be in, because that means that Ohio State would have a loss, and that's a head-to-head. And then, and also Michigan's, that means Michigan State would have a loss as well. So I believe that's all the scenarios, basically if everyone wins out, they'd pretty much be in.
Okay.
Scott, give us your picks, 19 points at home. And also, Scott, your favorite right here. It's ABC. It's not Fox News. It's just ABC 12, and it's game day, right? So you love those 12 o'clock games.
Well, you know what? I do now, because I never watch a game live. So that means like the first game can start with my game. So if I'm on a little bit of a delay, then when I start watching those 3:30 games at 5, then I can go and, catch it in the second quarter or something, or, the third quarter. So yeah, I do like, for what it's worth, I do like the announcers. I tend to like the announcers more, the way they put the production together more on ABC than Fox. That's just me. I would say, man, what team's going to show up? Because we've handled Purdue this last week. I mean, I still don't think we played as well as we could have. We won by 28. So, but we've dipped around with Nebraska the week before and had a 9-point victory. We dipped around to Penn State and had a 9-point victory. So, are we going to come out and just put our foots on their throats like I want to and have a big victory? That's what I'd love. I love that to happen. So, what team's going to show up? I don't know. I'm going to say that even though I have my concerns, I think the tone of the game is going to be set early. I still think we're going to win. I think we'll win by 25. So I know, Trey, you're not good at math. So when I say we're going to win by 25, and if we score 40 points, how many points do they have?
40-15.
What's that?
40-15.
There you go.
Nice. Okay.
Hey, your 5th grade teacher would be proud.
I'm pretty good at instant math. Any of those algebra, geometry, I get lost, but I'm decent.
I love how he called it instant math.
Hey, we're talking about barometer here. Barometer. All right.
Yes, indeed.
I think it's going to be a little tighter, because I'm going to go with Kenneth Walker keeping a little closer. I think he's going to establish the run a little bit, but I think CJ Stroud's going to get explosive. Not sure about their quarterback at all. But I'm going to go 38-14 Buckeyes. So if I was a betting man, I'd take Michigan State in the points. But I think you guys pull away at the end a little bit.
What about you, Sean?
What about you, Sean? 19-point spread. Hey, fighting Mel Tucker's, by the way. Good coach.
I think maybe this thing is, I'm going to say 49-28. I think is what I'm going to go with. I think it's close until midway through the third quarter. And then I think that just, to me, the big difference is just the ability to make explosive plays offensively. You guys have the ability to do that. Michigan State doesn't. And so I think that once, some of those explosive plays start coming in, it becomes really hard to just run the ball. You know what I mean? You got to start passing it. And it just doesn't really seem like that's Michigan State's forte this year.
Yeah.
Well, and Sean, to give you some instant math on that, if you're predicting 49-28, that's a 21-point victory. Yeah. Instant math.
Instant math.
It's Did I just create a word? Is this going to go viral?
No.
Okay. He said no.
I mean, it would be nice.
We're getting 20 views instead of 19.
Yeah.
We're getting 20 instead of 19. All right, and we'll jump right on the last part real quick. All right, so of course the college football playoff rankings won't be updated till tomorrow because this is recorded on a Monday. But what were your thoughts about the weekend? And it looks like Oklahoma at 8 was as advertised and got no love as they got dominated by Baylor. Great win for Dave Aranda, and possibly him getting a new coaching gig. What was your thoughts?
Well, I'll give you my quick thoughts. It's great to be a Georgia fan, I guess, and in one regard, Ohio State fan too. That we can sit here and complain about how we're still not up to snuff, and yet we have huge victories. Mm-hmm. I mean, Georgia's still far and away the best team. Alabama is. I mean, I don't see anything changing. I don't see anything changing in the top 4. Georgia had a big victory. Bama had a big victory. Maybe we go in front of Oregon, but I don't think so. So I really don't see anything changing. I'm not even going to watch the damn show for what that's worth. So, I just don't see. I mean, maybe Michigan.
I didn't realize they had a show for this. By the way, I just figured they released it on Twitter.
No, it's on a Tuesday, and I watched it last week. But I will say this, man, that Oklahoma, they are who we thought they were. Notre Dame's going to come up, but I still don't. Unless there's a lot of people to lose down the stretch, doesn't mean everybody's going to win out. But the only question mark is Ohio State wins out, they're in. Georgia wins out, they're in. Oregon wins out, they're in. And when you talk to Vegas, I mean, Vegas does not like Oregon. So, Vegas thinks that Oregon's going to have a loss. Now, will or won't they? Who knows? Because I don't know. I think they've got Utah on their schedule coming up, and Utah's been pretty tough as of late. The question is, if all of those went out, and I doubt that's the way it'll happen, how close is that Bama-Georgia game in the SEC championship? Is that what is going to come down between them and Cincinnati? Because I don't see any. That's basically Cincinnati's best chance to get in, unless somebody, Ohio State, Oregon, slips up.
Bama's not getting in with 2 losses. Do you want me to tell you why I mentioned it? Unless it's weirder things. First off, two lost teams never got in, didn't win their conference. And then they would probably get bumped down to at least the 4th. So are you going to make a team play them back to back? You're going to play, we just played them and beat them. And then you're going to make them play again in the playoffs, 1 and 4.
Well, here's what I'll say to you, Trey. Here's a little
get them in.
Lesson. And I know I'm right on this. To your point, no 2-loss team has ever gotten in. Here's the other thing that's never happened. Somebody that has a huge loss has not gotten in either. So if you go and if you're 1 loss, but you lost by 28.
That's not true.
Okay,
Oklahoma, Oklahoma had a couple of fairly big losses, I think, in 2018 and 2019.
Trey, can you look that up? What do you consider a big loss?
Well, and it may not have been 21 or 28, but they lost to unranked teams by double digits, which to me is a big loss.
Okay. Well, sometimes, during a certain year, they don't have any choice. I think the year that Ohio State was left out, we had 2 losses, but we were Big Ten championship, I want to say, or one of our losses was a big loss to either, I think it was been Iowa or somebody, or it might have been Purdue was our only loss to Purdue in 2018, but it was a big loss by 29 points. So then it kind of rebring the question, what is a big loss? Well, Notre Dame got their asses beat a couple years ago from Clemson, but then they had beat them earlier in the year. And they're kind of like, well, we don't know who else to put in. So it's your definition of what's a big loss and who else is around you. So I think Oklahoma, the way they've been playing, up to this game, and then they finally lost, I think they're out. There's an outside chance Notre Dame gets in, but there's got to be just crazy things got to happen because they don't have anything. They've already lost. They're not going to put a Notre Dame over Cincinnati. I'd be shocked, and they don't have anything that's going to go and move the dial coming up. So,
to me, I think it's going to be close. I think even if we beat Bama, which I think will happen in the SEC title game, I think Bama will get moved down some. They might be 5th though, just on the outside looking at it. But I think that's if. But I think you're going to need Oregon to finish out and win the Pac-12, and then obviously I think Ohio State's got to win the Big Ten,
or one of the Big Ten schools.
And I think you need probably Cincinnati as well, right?
Hey, well, looking back on your question real quick, not to go in. So they lost. That's Kansas State. Was that a bad loss? Non-ranked team, maybe? That was 2019.
Yeah, but it was 7 points.
Yeah. You think that was it, Sean, or is it another one you're talking about? Maybe 2018? Let's see.
Maybe been 20.
You know what? You know what I did?
did?
You know what I did? Trey, I called his bluff
Hey, they lost to Texas by 3.
by 3.
Yeah,
Did they? I thought they had another loss in there somewhere. Maybe I guess I'm making.
then they came back
shit
and they
up.
beat them 39-37, and then
Oh,
Bama.
I guess I'm just making shit up.
Yeah.
There you go. Hey, that's your best. By the way, that's your best material. But anyways, I think if you want to make that argument, you could say that about Notre Dame was in 2019 with Notre Dame.
That was last year, right?
That was last year, wasn't it? That was last year. So, but they beat them early in the year, and then they got their asses beat in the ACC championships. They're like, hey, maybe we'll join a conference. They get the beat down. They're like, well, we'll go back to being independent. Good for you, Notre Dame.
Yeah, well, and what becomes interesting, like here's a hypothetical I want to have. Not that I think it's necessarily going to happen this way, but let's just say that, I don't know, Michigan State or Michigan, somebody other than Ohio State wins the Big Ten, right? But you guys, let's just say it's a close loss that you guys have to either or. So you've only got 2 losses, well, maybe you lose by 3 points. If we beat Bama in the SEC title game, then it's kind of interesting as to who gets that 4th spot. I think maybe 2 Big Ten teams could potentially get it.
Cincinnati.
The issue though is that like Cincinnati's kind of shot themselves in the foot because they've had way too many. If you're really elite, right? You're not like barely. You're not.
Look who's
really
talking like Kirby Smart.
You got to be elite. You're elite or you're not.
I'm just saying, if you're a great team, you're not winning close ones to like schools of the blind like Cincinnati is. Can we just go ahead and put that on the table? They were blowing people out. I hear you. If they're blowing people out, yeah, absolutely, they should be in there. But like, when you're winning by like 7 points and rolling around with, NICI or whatever the hell that
NIAI.
Yeah, teams, but rolling around with them.
Hey, they beat a bad South Florida team rolling around with them Friday night. That was bad too. Didn't cover. 2-7.
Sean, what I love is that as you sit there and you criticize Kirby Smart, which rightfully so. You sit there, and I'm sure you got your visor on right now, and you're drinking your Kirby Smart Kool-Aid as you say, if you were
I have a red Gatorade and the cherry one, the white one.
I'm just here to point out that you're full of shit. But let me say, I haven't been full of shit from time to time either. So what I will say is they've referenced the 2007 season, and that's 14 years ago. But that was the year that LSU had 2 losses and won the national title. But if you remember, Les Miles says, "Well, we were undefeated in regulation because they lost the games in overtime." I'm like, "We still 2 losses." But when you go back,
he also won the Tice Conference. So.
Hey, speaking of that
Georgia year
was the highest.
But here's the other
down the stretch.
Here's the other thing I'm going to say to you. That year, Virginia Tech only had 1 loss, but they got their asses beat by LSU, so you can't really put them over. So it's funny how things work out. But they have 1 loss this year, but that was the year that Virginia Tech played at LSU, and I think Tyrod Taylor was also that's where he came. He replaced one of the guys there. God, I forget so who's the guy? He played at NC State, and now he's gone around. He's been in the pros, and he's always a back player. What's that?
Russell Wilson.
Not Russell Wilson. God, I can't believe he's a tall guy. He's got a shaved head now.
Mike Glennon.
Is he white?
Yes. Ready for this? No, Mike
guy?
Glennon. His brother.
It's a white guy. It's definitely Russell Wilson.
No, it's
Mike Glennon. Okay. Focus as I come back in here. Mike Glennon, his brother played at Virginia Tech, was fucking horrible. And I'm pretty sure in that 2007 game when that's when Tyrod Taylor came in from there, they still got the doors blown off. Long story short, even though Virginia Tech only had 1 loss, it's because they got their asses beat by LSU, who ended up having 2 losses, 2 close losses. So who knows if this is going to be one of those years or not. Let me to change gears. Let me ask you guys, when do you think they change to an 8-team or a 12-team playoff? I think right now, I'd love to at least see 8 in the next 3 years. If it turns out to be a 12-team playoff, great. And then I'm all for winning the 6 teams that win the conference, and then 6 other ones. I mean, I have no problem with that whatsoever. I don't think you should go above 12, and you should try that for like 10 years or something. What do you think happens with that?
It's hard, Scott. I think you know way more about how that stuff goes than I do. I don't know. I mean, I feel like there ought to be an 18 playoff though, just because, I mean, dude, we were doing it 5 minutes ago. Like, going through these hypotheticals, if you got a 2-loss Ohio State and 2-loss Bama, who gets in? I mean, it's just, I mean, you're talking about a game that's decided on something objective, and you're, essentially deciding who gets to play on like subjectiveness. It's almost like the Miss America pageant.
Man, and
what are your thoughts, Trey?
yeah, actually, I thought this was going to be probably the next 3 years. From what you're reading, it was going to be a 12-team playoffs, but I think what delayed it, and you got to figure out when it happens, is the whole Oklahoma-Texas merger. I think that kind of like monkeyed up some stuff. So I think they kind of have to figure out when.
But I don't see why that should though, because neither one of them is going to do a damn thing in the SEC.
No,
for
because it took away more from the Big 12, and it's going to make more teams eligible for the SEC. They're talking about, I love this 12-team.
Well, to me, the whole 12-team playoff thing was to ensure that at least every major conference winner got in, and then that you had sufficient room for just the at-larges after that, so that you didn't have to split hairs.
Well, it's going to make more SEC schools. Like, let's just say, like, hey, for example,
how's it going to make more SEC schools? It's not going to make more SEC schools.
I think it
will.
will.
It's not going to. No, it won't. You know why?
It'll probably guarantee 2 at least.
They almost get guaranteed 2 now.
Well, I'm just saying, like, all right, let's just say hypothetical. Hey, it's 12 this year, right? Look how many.
This is the last hypothetical I'm giving you, by the way. Your hypotheticals are never hypotheticals.
Live in the real world.
Like run-on summit. Just run-on story.
Georgia and Alabama.
Then you forget what you were talking about. You're like, wait, what?
Yeah. Hey, Trey.
Hey,
Trey. If you're gonna make an analogy, have it be an analogy that's 14 years old regarding the Glennon brothers.
All right, if you were in a 12-team this year, you there's a chance that 3 or 4.
By the way, Scott, like, are you applying? Are you getting AARP in the mail yet?
What I like to do is I like to get really far out on that analogy, and then forget what I was talking about, but then come back around to it.
All right, let's just say analogy. Right now, there's a chance that if you had it today, that you would get Ohio State. You get possibly 3
analogy.
Big 10 schools in.
Trey, can you do me a favor and Google analogy? Like, I don't even understand the point you're trying to make here. It's just like you're just saying words.
No, I said with the 12-team playoff, there's a chance for some of these conferences, really good teams, to get more than 2, 3 or 4 in there, possibly.
Right, here's the other reason. Here's what I'm gonna say. If you want to grow, if you actually want to grow the postseason, that's the whole other reason. Yeah. Okay, because life isn't fair. It's never going to be fair. Get over it. Okay. Part of the reason that grows the sport for so many years is all these debates that we're having right now with obviously highly intelligent people, at least one of the 3 of us. But what I will say is, with some of those other debates, everybody wants to see it on the field. If you go back to 2003, LSU and USC had a split national championship. What happened if it would have been on the field? There's no telling. All these, there's no doubt so-and-so would have won. You don't know until you play the game on the field, okay? 2014 Ohio State versus Alabama. Everybody's like, well, why even play that game? If that was the BCS era, Florida State would have played Alabama, and Florida State would have got the doors blown off. And everybody's like, well, Ohio State would have won that game anyways. Well, okay, well, now we finally get a playoff era. So I think you at least compromise. Everybody's butt hurt over Greg Sankey and in Texas and Oklahoma. At least compromise on 8 if you don't want to do 12. I think the other thing that you can do, they talked about some of these games to start off with being home and away. You want to talk about growing the sport, because everybody else, these other bowl games, people don't give a damn about. Even right now, I mean, I'll still watch an Ohio State bowl game, but some of these other games, man, you can still have these meaningless bowl games. You're going to get the same viewers you always have. But these other kids that are then saying Florida plays Oklahoma a couple years ago, and of course, we've seen the impact of giving up. I'm surprised there's a bunch of players that haven't really left the team right now. I mean, you can show, even though they're still playing in the games, they've given up. But I digress. They don't play in the bowl game, and then they get their ass beat like they did by Oklahoma, and then they're like, well, that one didn't count. Well, if you're going to go play in the playoff, you're still going to get – doesn't mean that team's going to go on to win a national championship just like, men's basketball, but at least you're going to get some upsets. So that's another reason to have these. If you can you imagine if Georgia and Ohio State were playing, and then you had it one of those, either Ohio Stadium or you play that down in Georgia? Can you imagine how many more people you'd get for just that first round? Imagine that. If you had buys, I mean, that's how you grow the sport. And then you also get these kids that be like, okay, don't take the bowl game off. Let's see if you can win a national title.
Right.
Well, yeah, and I guess to kind of go back to what you were saying, Trey, the reason why I don't think it jeopardizes the Big 12 is because whether Oklahoma or Texas was in there or not, I still feel like most years they're just getting one team in, right?
Right.
I mean, really what it's designed to do is just to say, okay, we'll take all the conference winners and then we'll take the best of the at-larges and then settle it on the field. So, I mean, the Big 10, Pac-12, not Big 10, like Pac-12, Big 12, those teams are probably, those conferences rather, are probably getting one team in anyway. Like if Texas and Oklahoma comes to the SEC, there's probably going to be, some years where they'll get in. But I don't think it's going to be because the SEC is getting 3 or 4 teams in.
Yeah.
To your point, to your point too, I think, I mean, the SEC might get, but it's 2 or 3 teams. But you're at least going to have 6 teams from other conferences. It's not like all the open spots could be SEC teams. It's not going to happen. There might be some years. Or that's right. I agree. You're right, because there's going to be, like in the Big 10 East, man, there's going to be other ones that have several losses. So you might,
I mean, my
might
question
have
is this: why do we even bother to with these other conferences? I mean, are we just using them to practice?
Yeah.
Well, here's what's funny. Here's what's funny is like right now with the alliance, and I've heard somebody make this analogy with the alliance, which means nothing between the ACC, the Big 10, and the Pac-12. But if the SEC called up the Big 10 right now and be like, "Do you want to merge?" We'd be like, "Okay."
Dude, we should do that.
So I mean, obviously here in the college
we'll
football hour,
we'll call it the middle finger conference and just give it to everybody else nationwide.
Yeah, everything east of Nebraska, right? So what it is obviously here at the college football hour, even though Trey always forgets the name, we have the power to make that happen with our 18.
I did say that at first. I did say that before you came on, so we gave you a shout out.
Now I have one other question here regarding, I was thinking about this other SEC alignment. So when Oklahoma and Texas come into the SEC, they're obviously going to be in the SEC West. I'll but guarantee it. So I was looking at it. Well, who's going to move to the East? My guess is Arkansas is going to move to the East. I know if you look at a map, you're like, well, that doesn't make sense. Well, fucking look at Missouri. Okay. Missouri is further west than most of the teams in the SEC West. I mean, so I think the one that's most likely to move over to the SEC East is Arkansas, unless they want to say, well, hey, Alabama and Auburn. They're not going to move Alabama, and then they're not going to move LSU, but they might move maybe Auburn. I don't think that's going to happen, but maybe they'll move Auburn and say, here you go. You still play Bama every year, but you can play them again. I think it'll probably be Arkansas. What are your thoughts that when Oklahoma and Texas join to even out the conferences, who's going to move over to the?
They might do this. They talk about doing those pods. You might have like 14 pods.
I've heard a couple things. I've heard that they're looking to potentially moving Auburn over, but Auburn's got. I mean, there's a lot of, rivalry games in there, with the SEC West already. They got the Tiger Bowl with LSU, obviously the thing with Alabama. So to me, I think, I guess just move Arkansas over and who else can we swap?
You look at it, I don't see anybody else that gets moved. Maybe Auburn, but I think it's going to be Arkansas. Now let me ask you this, Trey: if there's 14 pods,
maybe we take Oklahoma. Maybe we take Oklahoma too, because otherwise, the West is kind of ridiculous, right?
Yeah, but ready for this? That's okay, SEC. Even though we don't know how to fucking count in the Big 10, you're going to take the team that's furthest fucking west, and you're going to put them in the SEC East. Just get your head out of your fucking ass.
Or Texas. We'll take Texas.
Hey, look, Texas would happily go, and now it's kind of like if you go all NFL. Before they did this realignment with the NFL, when I say this realignment, it's probably been 20 years ago or something. But at one point in time, if you look at the NFC East, who's got Dallas and Washington and the Giants and Philadelphia, at one point in time, the Arizona Cardinals were the NFC East. And I'm like, what the fuck are they east of? LA? I mean, it makes no sense. Yeah, so, I mean, look,
Atlanta was in the NFC West, I believe.
Yeah.
What's that now?
Atlanta was in the NFC West.
I mean, that's where they're like, what the hell are we doing here? Now, I'll be the first one to say from Big Ten country, when they did that whole leaders and legends, I'm like, y'all just need to you need to get your head out of your asses. I mean, just go ahead and do East and West. And so many people in the country hated that because, like, well, I don't even know what Ohio State was in. Are we the legends or the leaders? I mean, it's horrible. It's horrible.
You know what I think? I think we need to do in the SEC is let's just rather than make it East and West, let's just do North and South.
Well, that's you know what? You laugh, but you're getting close to maybe doing that, man. You're getting close to doing that. At least, even though the ACC, you still don't know. I mean, they got the Atlantic and the Coastal, but like even the ones on the Coastal, like
names ever. Yeah, which one's which, by the way?
Which, by the way, here's the thing. But if you're in the Coastal, like, does that mean you're on the coast? Because
I don't know.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I think like when Notre Dame was in there last year, I think they were like in the coast. I'm like, the coast of what? Like fucking Lake Michigan?
Yeah.
So, I don't know. That's the whole thing of names. I mean, I will say I heard somebody float this out that the Big Ten, they wanted to change from the East and West. And, they're trying to, they're just using the Big Ten name, but it's really just they got the big conference, BIG. But if you really want to think about Big Ten country, you should have done like lakes and plains. Have like, you think about the Great Lakes and then the plains and then just, here you go, do that. Or, East and West is fine. But if you take the team that's furthest west and put in the East, change the damn names.
Right.
I mean, honestly, like this is about as piss poor of a naming job as this country has had since Trey's parents decided to name him Paul Brown Tucker III.
Damn.
So you guys got a name? So what's your name?
Family name.
Paul Brown. Yeah, just name Paul Brown Tucker, man.
Right.
It's just not a college football hour without several insults thrown at Trey. So Trey, we appreciate you being a good sport. Now, Trey, I actually have one important question for you here.
All right,
14 pods. How would you determine who makes in the SEC championship?
And what the
You
fuck
had like
is
a little
pod,
Final
by
Four or
the way?
something?
They would bring out each one, and then you would, I think, lessen the conference games, and you would have like 2 extra. I don't know. They were talking about all these scenarios, and it kind of died out when
You take the 2 biggest pods or something? I don't know what that's all about.
I said that you would the winner of each pod, because I think isn't there another conference with pods? They were basing it off that. I don't know. It's just some analogies they brought up.
Yeah, I don't know what you're talking about. So that's why I just didn't know how you determine the SEC championship. But here, I've got one other comment right now is Jimbo Fisher, breaking news. He says it would be, with the unbelievable recruiting class he's coming, he'd be the dumbest human to leave for LSU. That's what he says. So when he leaves,
Remember that.
we can just say he's the dumbest human. Now, he might also be one of the richest humans in the SEC when and if he leaves. So, but I think we all agree. But I think we can all agree on one thing with everyone who listens to this podcast. We're making everyone dumber every day, every week. That is.
Nice.
Well, I don't think he would ever leave because he's already got Texas A&M bent so far over a barrel. I mean, it's like he doesn't even have a buyout on his contract. I'm pretty certain.
Yeah.
Like they literally gave him anything like he wants. So like, it's kind of gonna be a step down from that standpoint from whoever else tries to take him.
Right.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on that, Trey? I just don't. I don't think
he's leaving. He's got the big recruiting class. That's a crazy buyout. I know he's got the AD over there. They've got a pretty good working relationship. They know each other. But I mean, he could have went most recently and he didn't go. I think Dave Aranda.
I think Dave Aranda just makes too much sense. I mean, that was your DC when you won your last national title. He's kind of turned Baylor around. Yeah.
And Baylor has, when they do have a good team, they either have somebody who leaves in disgrace, like Art Briles, or they have somebody who goes to a bigger opportunity. Matt Rule, Carolina Panthers, and I see LSU's old defensive coordinator coming back and being the head coach. Now, who ends up at USC?
That's a good question. Franklin. Somebody was joking around that Lane Train might go back. Lane gets a hot
zero percent chance that happens. Ain't gonna fucking happen. He won't be back at USC.
I don't know. Lane Train to LSU could be interesting. Dude, they're talking about, man, Florida might come available. It'd be interesting.
That's what I was. Hey, that was my next question. Who's gonna end up in Florida? Because before the South Carolina game, I would have said, well, you got to go ahead and give them. Oh my God, they got the doors blown up by South Carolina. And now they're screwing around with Samford this last week. I mean, dude, that is, you talk about the dumpster fire.
Yeah. I agree. That'll be interesting. I kind of want him to stay because I like beating the shit out of them every year. Dan Mullen.
Yeah, no
All
doubt.
right.
Well,
All right,
if it was the Big Ten, they would say, well, hey, can we lower your buyout and have you stay longer?
yeah, it's great. All right, anything to get off your chest there, Angry Scott?
I think I've gone. I mean, don't you think we made the audience dumb enough?
Yeah, we did. I like it. Hey, make
John,
sure
your thoughts?
I think Sean already said here. I got off, man. We pissed him off. I don't know.
All right, Trey, take us home.
All right, buddy. And that's the Herschel Talkers featuring the College Football Hour, North to South, with Angry Scott, Big Sean, and I'm just Trey. And we're out.